Okay, let's get started. Hari Om. Today is almost the last class session for 2022. And with all your support and the blessings of everyone, of our gurus, of Ishvara, we've been able to come up to 98 lectures. So I was thinking that maybe we would fit 100 this year, but I guess we'll continue. Life is a continuous stream, right? So, Om, Om, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Mrudavarshini Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Vrutatuhe Namaha Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapada Kramopanishadaihi Gayantiyam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Datkatena Manasa Pashyantiyam Yoginaha Yasyantam Navidhusura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Shma Shuchaha. So again, welcome to all of you who've joined today for our 98th session of the Bhagavad Gita. And we are on chapter number 6, a very important chapter because it is that chapter which really tells us that sometimes we may be studying too much. And by that, what do I mean? I guess by that, we are trying to study the Bhagavad Gita and all the literature, the Shastras, which allows me to recognize my own individual personality. Who am I? What am I in relation to the world? For all this, sometimes we have to slow down. We need to slow down and really reflect upon what is being said in the Bhagavad Gita, what is being said in all these granthas, which allows me to reflect upon the teachings. And that is exactly why this chapter has come in, because it is not a very, very preliminary chapter where I'm trying to just slow down because I'm tired or anything, but it is actually a chapter which allows me to slow down and reflect upon the teachings. So with that, in this chapter, there is a lot of instructions that is given, and also instructions are said in such a way that it makes you truly understand and analyze what meditation is, why I need to do it, and what are the factors which can help me get into that ultimate nirvana state, because that's where this chapter is going with. Ultimately, I need to shed all the roles, all the conceptions, or notions that, I think this is who I am. I need to really shed all that and recognize my true essence. And that is where this chapter is finally going to. So, in this regard, we've been looking in our reflection time on very, very practical things that we need to pay attention to. Last time, we talked about the time and place of meditation. So, I'm going to throw open this question for today. What other practical things we need to take care of? Because you will see in the shlokas that we come to today, that aspect is dealt with. But from your side, I would like to know, what do you think as the most practical, simple things that we need to think of before we enter into this portal of meditation?
We should take care that we are fresh, we are not sleepy or tired.
That
time, otherwise you just close your eyes and you just want to sleep. So that's
and it's true, isn't it, that at this time of meditation, when we sit, we actually get the best sleep.
Yes, we yawn more during meditation.
Because we have totally calmed ourselves, and there is, that's what the mind needs. The mind needs to be able to relate to it. So that's true. So sleep is one thing. Another one, or what other things? I guess the most basic of basic things, which is food. Food is also something which we spend our whole lifetime, at least in India, they spend the whole lifetime. Literally, sometimes you worry about what is really life about here. You go there, spend all your time earning your money, and then you worry about, okay, did my vegetables come on time? Did the milk come on time? What am I going to make today? What is going to be the menu? That is the biggest worry for people. I think for many of us, not necessarily for just India, but nevertheless, being here now, I really see the value of time even more so. And why are we worried so much about food? So, in any case, these are the two major things that are kind of the most practical things that we need. And this is something that today we will be going into. So, sixth chapter, it has about 47 verses. Let's just chant very quickly the shlokas. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Shashtodhyayah Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashrita Karma Phalam Karyam Karma Karoti Yaha Sasanyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragnir Na Chakriyah Yam Sanyasamiti Prahuhu Yogam Tam Vidhi Pandava Nahya sanyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati kaschana arurukshor munir yogam karma karana muchyate yoga rudhasya tasyaiva shamak karana muchyate yata hinendriyartheshu na karma svanusajjate sarva sankalpa sanyasi Yogarudhastadochyate uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadhayet atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu atmaiva ripuratmanaha bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat Jitatmanah prashantasya paramatma samahitah shitoshna sukha dukkheshu tatha manapamanayoho Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutastho Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samaloštashma Kanchanaha Suhrun Mitra Yudasina Madhyastattveshya Bandhushu Sadushvapi cha Papeshu Samabuddhir Vishishyate. Yogi Yunjita Satatam Atmanam Rahasi Stitaha Ekaki Yata Chittatma Nirashira Parigraha Shuchau Deshe Pratishtapya Sthiramasana Atmanaha Natyachritam Nati Nicham Chailajina Kushotaram Tatrai Kagram Manah Kritva Yata Chittendriya Kriyaha Upavishyasane Yunjyat Yogamatma Vishuddhaye Samam Kaya Shiro Grivam Dharayanna Chalam Stiraha Samprekshya Nasikagram Swam Dishashchanavalokayan. So this is where we kind of finished last time. Actually, two more, but we'll just very quickly go through these two shlokas which we did last time. And here in this shloka, he's coming into also a couple of practical suggestions, but more about really having a posture. So we talked about sleep just now. Now, clearly you don't want to be in a sleeping pose for meditation, because when I'm in sleeping pose, I mean, sitting itself, I can fall asleep. So you can imagine if I'm on a sleeping pose, obviously I will be falling asleep, right? So this is why he says, that I need to sit in a certain way. And amazing, but I don't know if you, Minu and Subhana, you know this, but now some of these practices, what has been told to us on how we should sit and everything, is slowly creeping into the Americans are sitting up to watch, to notice, this thing about Topakaranam, Topakaranam, this holding on the ears and doing your exercise. I saw a video of it recently, and I don't know if you have seen it. If not, I can pass it on to you. But there is some study that has been done on how there is nerve endings about, in the ears, and holding it and doing the Sopakaranam is good. So too, I'm sure pretty soon somebody is going to come up and do some analysis on the sitting pose. How often, how long should you sit in the sitting pose? And can you actually hold this foot on top of, your thigh or something? These are actually really the yogic postures. Postures have a lot of meaning behind it. And I guess I myself have to do some search and see on how much these postures do bring about a balance of energy or the flow of the blood and, those things. So he says in this shloka, the meditator should firmly hold his body in such a fashion that his vertebral column is completely erect, the head and the shoulders. And we are seeing that now. Today, we look at this phone all the time like this. And as I said last time, fibromyalgia, these spondylitis is really increasing these days. And amazing that in Bhagavad Gita, in Mahabharata, I guess at that time, they already looked into this. And Krishna is telling Arjuna these practical suggestions on how to hold the body here. So, samam kaya shiro grivam, that is why kaya means body, shira is head, grivam, both the body and the neck have to be in the straight line. And then he talks about this gazing at the tip of the nose. And the idea behind this is just using that as an auto-suggestion, as an auto-suggestion, which we saw last time, is even if I can just, bring my thumb and hold it, and then just have my mind focus upon it. And then when I close my eyes, automatically my mind thinks my tip, this is there. And so that is again as a training of the mind to be able to focus on one area. And then achalam stiraha, that is being completely free of movement of the body. And nowadays we don't notice this, but I'm sure many of you would have noticed in India, sometimes when people are sitting, they would be either, shaking the leg, unknowingly your leg is, you start shaking your leg or anything, or even your thighs or whatever. Nowadays, you don't really find people doing that because I think consciously we tell ourselves, no, we are not supposed to do it and all that. But the point is, the mind is, is giving these auto suggestions to a body even without us recognizing this. So these shlokas are just trying to tell us about how to hold your body, how to maintain your movement, or keep it movementless. So that's the idea with Achalam Stiraha. And then Anavalokayan, not looking around. Again, simple things which we don't recognize, but we tend to do it subconsciously. And there was one time I was watching a meeting notice of one of my Zoom meeting recordings, and I was actually surprised how many times that my eyes were moving around in this particular meeting. That how I was not focusing on the speaker. It's just so subconsciously we do this, we don't even realize this. But the idea what Lord Krishna is trying to show is, how can I focus my mind? How can I get my sense organs to, pay attention to my bidding? So that's the thing on 13. And then in Shloka 14, he talks about, how should the mind be? The mind, before I enter into the space of meditation. So again, the idea what he's trying to come here is not, because he says prashanta manastasya, is when I get into this space of meditation, the qualification of the meditator should be these three things, what he's going to say in the shloka, which is the mind itself has to be calm. Only then can I really start my meditation process. But then the question is, why is the mind not calm? The mind is not calm because there is constantly all these things that are happening in our life, which we tend to bring into the meditative state. Simple things like, okay, and that's why, as we said, the first thing in the morning, the Brahma Muhurta is the right time to do it, because at that moment, the day's workings do not disturb us. Of course, the mind can always throw things even when nothing is happening, but to that extent, meditation in the morning is really important. So in this, we'll chant the shloka and we'll look at the three main things he talks about here. Prashantatma vigata bhihi brahmachari prite sthitaha manas sanyamya machittaha yukta asita matparaha. So he talks about three different qualities, which is the serenity of the mind or the calm personality here. And then he talks about the vigata bihi, being absolutely fearless. And then the quality of brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, three things, very important. When I have all this, then my mind is pretty controlled and I can actually sit where it is not just mat chittaha, but also mat paraha. Mat chittaha meaning where the mind is focused completely on that absolute self. So when that mind is completely focused, mat paraha, I tend to have absolute love and respect for that absolute Lord. Mat paraha. So that's the thing what the shloka is saying. So the prerequisites of the meditator is the prashantatma, vigatabihi, and brahmacharya. So calmness, like we talked about, is really the most important quality here. And why are we not getting calm, which we said the past, present, future? But I think the more crucial part of it is the ability to totally forget my roles. When I get into the meditative space, literally, like how Gurudev would say, you have to keep your slippers or the slippers which you leave outside when you enter into the temple. The significance of that is when I'm entering into the temple, I am actually completely forgetting that I am all these roles, starting with, of course, the body, mind, intellect, and all the roles that the body, mind, intellect takes over as a mother, father, brother, worker, etc. And from there on, the roles of manager, so many different roles, even voluntary service, voluntary volunteer, all these roles, when I leave outside that temple, then my mind is, and as I put my foot into the temple, my mind now completely focuses on that absolute Lord who's there. So that is what this literally the Prashantatma signifies, that when I am in touch with that absolute Lord, when I am focusing completely on that Lord, my mind automatically, is in touch, that matparaha, matchittaha, what he says. So Prashantatma is a very important term from that regard. And Vigata Bihi, not just having fear, not just being free of the fear of worldly things, oh, what's going to happen, now that COVID B7 is being released in China, and China is really going through this major spell of, the COVID thing. Is that going to come back again? What is going to happen? It may happen, it may not happen in India, United States, who knows, right? But then my mind is throwing all these fears, unnecessary fears. And so that is on one level of material. But even from a spiritual perspective, I need to give up any kind of fear of what will happen if I get into that meditative state. Am I going to totally face one dark abyss or something like that? Or is this something like, and I can only think about this example of when we go to some of these theme parks, when we are dropped down or something, you feel like as if you're going to, especially a theme park which is close to our Michigan, you have all this big drop, what's going to happen? Is the world going to dive below my feet or something? No, nothing like that is going to happen when I meditate. And again, it's just the mind that throws all these fears. So that is the part he's saying. And then brahmacharya, beautiful word from, we talked about last time about the body control. But here, the idea also is when my mind has been completely focused on the aspect of the Lord, then I'm totally free of anything. I have literally given up any sense of duality. Complete, I'm just focused only on that Lord. So brahmacharya is renunciation at a very high level. That's one can look at it from that point also. So this, and again, brahmacharya truly comes with a lot of discipline. As I, in my day-to-day life, I start to develop that control, and that control allows me to get to that state of brahmacharya. So brahmacharya need not totally mean the control of sense organs and everything, but it is also complete control at even the mind level. So that is brahmacharya. So then we just read the shloka last time, so we'll go deeper into shloka number 15. Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi niyatamanasah shantim nirvana paramam matsamstham adhigacchati. So here he's saying, ultimately, the idea is always, so 24/7. And, having mentioned Prashantatma, Vigata Bihi, and brahmachari. The idea is these things have to be part of our psyche, part of everything I do. And that is why he says, Yunjan evam sadat atmanam. Sadatmanam, I'm trying to make my camera here. So Yunjan evam sadatmanam, thus keeping the mind always balanced. Yogi sada atmanam, balanced. Niyata manasa, yogi niyata manasa, the person, the meditator who has come so far after having listened, Shravanam, having done a lot of listening, and now he's totally understood the role of meditation. Such a person, he's saying, yogi niyata manasaha, with his mind completely niyatam, completely controlled, with his mind control, he attains that shantam, he attains that peace, which is, what kind of peace is that? Is it a peace which comes and goes? And this is a very important thing too, is, we always, now that it's New Year, we wish everyone, wishing you lots of peace, joy, happiness. Now, we wish peace from the world. That's what we're wishing. We say that, hope your mind will be always peaceful and everything. But here, he's referring to the peace which is my own self, So let me attain that same peace which is my own self, Shantim Nirvana Paramam, which is ultimately that highest state of moksha, or ultimately that state of liberation. Let me attain that. And how do I attain that? Is by recognizing that that peace is me, myself, by abiding in me. First, I need to recognize that I don't have to go anywhere else for that peace. Next, I need to recognize that peace is myself. And then I have to just focus on myself. So very simple shloka, but totally brings out the essence of the fact that I don't have to go anywhere at all. Literally, 24/7, I can be at home just in meditation by understanding that I am that peace. So that's what I wanted to mention here, which is by understanding that I am that peace can be obtained only by me meditating upon my own self. And ultimately, that is the final leg of our journey to get that ultimate peace itself. So having said that, so with this shloka, basically the shloka number 15, he has given us so many different disciplines, and ultimately he has, again, if I use an example of a theme park, he has just now dropped us, he has told us that this is the peace, this is what you've been looking for all the time. And guess what? That peace is yourself. So it is literally the climax. He's taken us to the heights of this nirvana. Now, having done that, one may say that, well, I have now finished Bhagavad Gita, I can now just totally meditate, right? And what else do I really need? But you see, Krishna then comes back to that two practical suggestions that we talked about, which is sleep and food. Because so far he hasn't talked about it. So far he has been kind of giving us all the reasons why I should be doing meditation, how I should be doing. And now he's telling us, let's take care of simple things, let's take care of sleep and food. So that is what he's coming to here. We'll chant the shloka. Natyashnatastu yogosti, natyashchanastu yogosti, nachaikantamanashnataha, nachaikantamanashnataha, nachati swapnashilasya, nachati swapnashilasya, jagrito naiva charjuna, jagrito naiva charjuna. So essentially, he's not telling us, okay, don't eat food or don't sleep or any of that. He doesn't start that at all. Again, Krishna being Krishna, and the language of our scriptures being that it's always only a suggestion, always a suggestion. It's like Krishna is saying, I mean, you're all, at the end of the day, human beings. You're the roof of creation. You're blessed with this mind and your intellect. And I don't have to tell you what you should do, what you should not do, or anything. But I'll just tell you, this is what will happen if you do this, or this is what will happen if you do that. And I'll leave it at that. It's up to you to make your decision. So that's how, all these suggestions have been. And that's where in this shloka, he's trying to say that at the end of the day, Arjuna, he's saying, oh, Arjuna, it is not that you should not eat, or it is not that you should not sleep. But I want to tell you, don't do it in extreme. Take it in moderation, which he'll come to in the next 17 shloka. But here he's saying, na ati ashnaha tu, don't not eat too much. Na ati ashnaha tu yogaha. So yoga is not possible for someone who eats too much. Ati ashnataha. On the same lines, yoga is also not possible for yoga, or this ability of integration of my mind and intellect and everything. That is also not possible where you do not eat at all. And this actually in Chandogya Upanishad, it's so beautifully explained how this student, the teacher, wants to convey this message of the nature of Brahman, So he slowly he puts the student through different levels of teaching. First, he tells him, not to eat for a certain amount of time. And then the student comes back to him. He's just so exhausted, because he's just not able to think and everything. So here he says, so yoga is not possible when you eat too much. Yoga is not possible even if you do not eat, or if you eat far less than what you're supposed to eat. So nacha ekantam anashnataha, nor indeed for him who does not eat at all. And what about sleep? He says, first, I mean, look at the construction of the sentences also, He starts with saying, what happens if you sleep too much? So meditation is not possible if you sleep too much. Nacha ati swapna shilasya, nor jayataha na evacha, which means, okay, even if you decide that you want to remain awake and you want to actually, I think this is the problem with all of us nowadays, right? It is not that we sleep too much, actually, because it is the problem of not enough sleep. Maybe 30 years ago when we didn't have internet, or 40 years ago when we didn't have internet, or we didn't have our phones, maybe we were sleeping too much. We would tell our children to wake up. But now it is the other way around. We have to tell our children to go to sleep. Almost every youngster that I talk to, they are awake till 1 or 2 these days, So that's the problem we are facing. And then they have to rush to the classes which are at 9. At the last minute, they just get up at 8:50 or whatever, just barely brushing the teeth. And then even as you're walking to the classes, you're just stuffing something into your mouth. And then you're sitting with your head down in the class. I mean, we're seeing this more and more often. I don't know how we're going to address this and how we're going to make them understand. Kids are very smart these days, and you can't tell them enough, they don't want to listen to you, but this is where it is. So that's what the shloka is about, which is, so here I just put some pictures sometimes, which gives you, an idea of, and I couldn't get a nice, actually I could have gotten a picture from one of the weddings that I attend to nowadays. these days in weddings, there's a huge competition for the number of items you can serve. So just last week, I went to attend one of the weddings in Coimbatore. And for breakfast, literally, you can think about every South Indian breakfast item that was served, so 15 different breakfast items, only South Indian breakfast items, pure South Indian breakfast items, 15 of them, and at least maybe 15 kinds of chutneys. So we had 30 people in line. You have your banana leaf, and one after the other, they stand in line and they're serving you on the plate. Oh my goodness, it is. So that's about breakfast. If you think about reception and everything, 2 years ago, I attended a wedding. There were 60 items for reception. And I was told that that itself is not up there, So the really big weddings are ones which have at least 100 items or whatever.
Next time, take us also.
What is that?
Next time, take us to those weddings. Especially South Indian food.
South South Indian food is as these days, oily or whatever as any other food. So that's how the world is going, because, everyone is comfortable these days. India is, people are doing well. So where do you spend your time and energy? Just food, different kinds of food. So that is the thing. Now, this is the other way, where you are hardly eating anything. This is, again, we live in a society where your figure and those things are praised so much. And how else can you do that? Because you don't have time to do exercise. So then you end up, not eating too much. And when you don't eat much, there is not enough flow of blood to your brain. And when there's not much of flow of blood, you have loss of energy, and you're not able to focus on your food, focus on your studies, most important. So this is the state of life for us right now. And then sleep. What about sleep? Here, we don't want to, we really are deprived of sleep. And again, we're not able to sleep because we have so much going on. How do we calm ourselves down? Again, now being in the university, and when I see the students, you feel so sorry for them, because they don't know what they don't know sometimes. So sleep is something is a luxury, I think. If anybody can sleep well, even for half an hour or whatever, that is totally a luxury. And what about if you sleep too much? Which, like I said, these days, that is not the issue which we have. It's actually the lack of sleep, eating too much, or eating too less. Too much sleep is not the big problem here. But if we do sleep too much, I just listed some of the medical problems here. One can lead to obesity, one can lead to pain, concentration, so many different aspects here. So that is the idea behind all this, where we are going to, and this is exactly where Lord Krishna is trying to warn us about these two different things, sleep and food. And the shloka says, that's all is actually, there is no Vedanta in this part of the shloka. It is a pure practical thing about how this is the issue. These four things are the practical reasons why meditation cannot be successful. So one can see that, even if one has studied all the Vedanta, theoretically we may know this, but if I don't follow this as a way of discipline, that can be a major obstacle for my meditation. And then he goes on to say that what should one do in order to come to grip with this 4 different things here. So let's chant the shloka. Yuktahara viharasya, Yuktahara viharasya, Yukta cheshtasya karmasu, Yukta cheshtasya karmasu, Yukta swapnavabodhasya, Yukta swapnavabodhasya, Yogo bhavati dukkhaha, Yogo bhavati dukkhaha. So here it's a continuation of the previous shloka where he talked about how too much or too less of food and this can be a problem. So here he's coming to then what do I need to do for it? So he says, make sure that you actually practice moderation. So yukta ahara viharasya. So 2 things are mentioned here. Ahara, which is food, and vihara, which is recreation. Vihara, recreation. But we can actually interpret this as exercise. So yukta, be completely regulated in food as well as exercise. And yukta cheshtasya karmasu. One have to be moderate in the actions. Actions meaning, how much of energy do you really want to put every day? And then yukta swapna avabodhasya. So to be moderate in sleep and avabodha and in wakefulness. Because he says, if we practice all this, that by itself can be the panacea or the solution for literally all kinds of pain. He's saying yoga, dukkha, he compares this to pain, any kind of problems. So simple shlokas, simple things, which is just offering a solution, being moderate in sleep, being moderate in our activities, being moderate in eating, being moderate in recreation. So I'm sure many of you have come across this statement, not too tight, not too loose. This basically came from, Buddhism, where the idea was the way that Lord Buddha himself, when he came with that 8-fold path, he was a person who walked away from his house and he just, started meditating, and he literally gave up food and he became so thin and he just didn't have any energy at all. And while he was actually in this kind of a state, he just overheard a conversation where somebody was walking, one student and a disciple were walking together with a stringed instrument, and they say it is a veena. Veena was, I'm sure many of you have seen the veena. It is like the sitar. So this teacher was trying to tell the student, how to tune his veena, and he said, well, make sure you don't tighten it too much, because when you tighten it too much, the string will break. And if you don't tighten it, and if you keep it very loose, like I've just shown this guitar here. Imagine if in this guitar, the strings were just, not tightened enough, and it's just floating literally on the ferrets. There is just no way you can produce any kind of music. Or even if you did produce music to some extent by just, the string is still loose, it won't be in pitch. The pitch won't sound good, and it is just not right. So therefore one has to have just the right amount of tightening or loosening of the strings in order to play good music. So too in life, I need to be moderate in whatever I want to do, not to lose. So I saw this quote here: life is like the harp. It is strung. If it is strung too tight, it won't play. If it is strung too loose, it hangs. The tension that produces the beautiful sounds lies in the middle. So that is the whole idea. And so too with us, so moderation is really the key. So as much as we all want to, I mean, again, New Year is coming. One resolution is everyone will hit the gym. All the gym memberships are going to really increase, and you're not going to find the space. Probably it's going to be a tough situation in the first month or two, right? But then there is, one has to be careful on how much is enough in terms of exercise. We do want to spend a lot of time, or we think we can just lose this 5 kgs or whatever in the first month by doing 2 to 3 hours. That ain't going to happen for sure. Whereas, or you have all the other things that will happen. Our muscles will get too sore. We start feeling even more irritable than before what we had. And so we don't want that. We just don't want any of this. So moderation is really the key in terms of exercise. But I want to touch upon one point which is valuable for us, which is yukta cheshtasya karmasu. To be moderate in our own actions. Again, multitasking. This is how I interpret Krishna's shloka for this modern times. He's saying, don't multitask, try to focus on just one thing at a time. And the other thing which we all forget is, at the end of the day, if I'm good in one thing, that is more than enough. But we want to be good in 10 different things. Right from the time the university, we file for applications for the universities. The university says, oh, I need to see you good in sports. I need you good in music. I need you to be good in leadership activities, community service. I want you to be good in all this. And oh, by the way, if you're good in all this, I'll give you a seat for computer science or whatever, It's not that I need to be good in computer science and I get at this. That doesn't happen. So somewhere, I guess we need to take the shloka to our universities and tell them that, see, Krishna himself has said, focus on one thing and do it well, So that's, again, very, very practical. These two are really practical shlokas. So, but ultimately, when he says, yogaha bhavati dukkhaha, the idea he's trying to say is that when I recognize my goal of why I've taken this birth, and the goal being that me, this finite self with this body and all that, I need to really achieve that absolute infinite self. In order to do that, that is my goal. So if I practice all this, that is just basically taking care of my instruments, which will help me relieve me of all the dukkha or the pain that I'm going through in this world, which I don't recognize that it is because I'm too extremes in my pursuit of. And again, in the previous shloka, food need not necessarily be just food, anything which leads me to a lot of material thing. So when I go too much extreme into many of these, that's what leads me to this pain or dukkha. So I need to really practice moderation in these things. So that's what the two shlokas about. Let's look at what finally, then having said these two, again, Krishna always, comes with something to bring us back to reality. So here in this next shloka, he reminds us or gives us a thought to ponder upon on how can I be balanced in my own meditation when I've taken care of these two also. So we'll chant the shloka and then we'll complete. Yada viniyatam chittam, yada viniyatam chittam, atmanyevavatisthate, atmanyevavatisthate, nispriha sarvakamebhyah, Nispruha sarvakamebhyah yukta ityuchyate tada. Yukta ityuchyate tada. So, how do I know? How will I really know that I have reached that state? Now that he gave the practical shlokas, so he's saying that yukta ityuchyate tada. You will know then. When is that? When yada viniyatam chittam. So thus, when my mind is controlled, viniyatam chittam, atmani eva avatishthate. When with that mind, when my mind is completely absorbed or established on that absolute self. So remember, we started off by saying in the beginning on when I have left my slippers outside the door, that is when I have left my sense of who I think I am outside the door, then along with that, everything is taken care of, because my mind now is completely available to rest on that absolute self. So yada viniyatam chittam atmani eva avatishtate nispruha. Spruha means longing. Nispruha meaning free from longing. Every time, and this is also something that I've seen in India now that I'm here, there's always that thing, oh, I wish it could have been this way. There's so much amount of expectations. And I wish my children would call me. I wish my relatives would, call me and ask me how things are happening. This is always at expectations. So here he's saying absolutely no expectations, free from longing for sarva kamebhya. Just about anything that my mind is wanting for, free from the longings of all that objects of desire. At that point, my mind is totally, totally yoked or harmonized. Yuktaha iti uchyate. That is what it is called, yoga. That yoga is when that mind is totally free from any kind of longing for objects of desire, free from, is indifferent, nispruha, or has given up the longing for any kind of objects. That moment of this, truly I can say that I've reached that state. So again, pointers to show what that absolute state is. So we'll stop here at this point. Any questions or thoughts of what we looked at today?
Hari Om, the way where you started off the reflection time to where the stanzas went, it was like step by step. The clarity was I was able to understand it a little bit. And what I understood was that we have to it's not just the food or eating, it is just the materialistic aspect of life. I want this, I want that, I did not get this, oh, I should have gotten that. It's like past, present, future. As soon as we sit down, I mean, didn't even expect this kind of a thought was there, did not even know that the thought was there in our head. And as soon as we sit down to calm ourselves, God alone knows where the thoughts come from, and they make, it's a total calmness is completely gone. And then you're wondering, where did the thought even come from once the calmness is completely destroyed? So it's like, it's like the term I was trying to remember was not suppression, but sublimation. That is so important. Cannot just control it and say, oh, because I have the energy today, I will suppress it. No, that's not how it goes. You have to let it go. That's
Correct. And
yeah.
the thing for us, you said it really well, Suvarna. That's why one of the shlokas where it says Yunjan Nevam Sadatmanam, all the time, 100%, this thought has to be playing in our background, like how the Shruti box for me, Chinmananda would say that. The idea is basically when I'm going through my normal routine every day, I have to make sure that I'm leading a life of fulfillment in the sense, am I subconsciously suppressing something in my action? When somebody is telling me something and I really don't agree with that person, how am I dealing with that? Am I saying that, what, chhod do, I'm not going to say anything because if I say something, somebody's going to say something back to me. That kind of a thought when I'm meditating later to come, why didn't I say something? Why did I this? So idea of that suppression, there's a lot of suppression that happens in our day-to-day life. And I need to know really, I need to be consciously alert and vigilant to deal with that. Am I dealing with this saying that, I don't agree with it, but you know what, I really don't care or whatever. Something, my mind has to immediately at least tell myself, it's an auto suggestion that has to happen. If it doesn't happen, when I'm meditating, that will come back and, hurt us. So I actually wanted to touch upon that couple of things when that Yunjan Nevam Sadatmanam shloka came. And maybe we'll take that as a little bit of time for reflection next week to think about how to deal with a day, what are the thoughts that come in and how do I deal with it?
It's like you said, that suppression and sublimation. If we can talk more about that,
Yes.
that also would be great, especially when the example that you gave is fantastic. It is like when the event or the situation is happening, unfolding, how do you sublime and not suppress and be conscious of that? If we can have some more examples, that would be great, because that is where that's where we are at, day-to-day life, day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
Correct. So
Yeah, that I would love to reflect.
Which tells me that maybe next week we will have, why don't we have it? I want to push myself to do, not, I know it'll be, if we don't do a class next week, I'll become one of the Veena strings. There'll be no tension and I'll just relax, So let's talk about some of those kind of practical things which can impede our meditation. We'll spend a little time and you can think out some examples as well. Okay. So I guess I did have the date January 4th. So I was thinking about it. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet, om shanti shanti shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you so much for your inspiration. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Hari Om, and Happy New
Hari
Year.
Om.
Thank
Hari
you so
Om.
much. Hari Om.
Hari Om. See you
Hari
next
Om.
week.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Looking forward to wishing everyone next year again. Happy New Year. Hari Om.